Hello everyone. I want to talk about fussy cutting. I know a lot of people don't like to fussy cut. It's hard to do. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes we cut into the image or we cut things off the image that we really don't want to. But the results can really make your collage and your mixed media really stunning. This is a fussy cut image. She's just on this background. You can see the background behind her. The page blends nicely with the fussy cutting. So fussy cutting really has its place in mixed media. But there are ways to get around fussy cutting. So this is a magazine image, and you can tell it's just a piece of magazine paper on this background. She doesn't blend into the background. You can see the straight edge. So your eye is drawn to the straight edge. In the natural world, we don't see straight edges when we're looking around. So our eye naturally goes to the straight edges here and tells our brain that there is something wrong. So there are ways to get around. If you don't want to fussy cut at all, you can disguise those straight edges by taking torn strips of paper, book pages or scrapbook paper, just about anything with a little bit of a texture, maybe something from your background, and all you need to do is put the torn edge over those straight edges. And that tricks your eye into thinking that everything is okay. It disguises the straight edges, and your eye isn't drawn to that. So it's one way to get around fussy cutting. Another way to get around the detailed fussy cutting is to leave a little bit of a border or some of the background around your image. So I've left quite a bit of the background, or a little bit of the background around her hand, so I wouldn't have to cut all the way around those little fingers and the heels and things like that. When you look at it as a whole, you don't really notice that background unless you're really looking for it. Okay, let's get it focused. So it takes away the straight edges. It still works. So if you don't want to do a detailed fussy cut, doing something more general might be what you need. Okay? So here's another example of fussy cut, or a general fussy cut with some of the background left around there. So you can see that this is really a fussy image. She's got that bow, all that hair, those skinny little hands, her little feet. Everything is just, there's a lot of curves, but I've left a bit of that background around all that stuff. So she still has all the little bits. She's trying to escape. But you can still see all the stuff. I haven't cut anything off. She's still got all her little bits intact. She looks good against a white background. She doesn't look so good around a busy background because she's pretty busy herself. But if you put her on a more quiet background, she blends into the background pretty well. So leaving a little bit of the background behind an image will help make your collages what you want them to be without doing all the little detail cutting. So a little bit of background will go a long way. So here is an example of a block, an image, and you know she looks like a piece of magazine put on a background. So all we need to do is just cut her out a little contoured, leaving some of that background, and it makes all the difference. We don't have to take very much of it off, just a bit, just around, just to take away the straight edges and corners and things like that. When you're fussy cutting, it is easier to move the paper and leave your scissors straight. It helps go around curves and things like that. So let me cut around that boot just a little bit. So I haven't cut a lot of that image off, just enough, but it really does help to make the image work with your collage. It just takes just a little bit of contouring, taking away the straight edges for it to work. So that is one way to get around fussy cutting in a detailed kind of way. Another thing that I do is what I call, and I'm not sure if it's a thing, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I like to tear around images. Again, it takes away the straight edges and leaves kind of a softer edge that blends into the backgrounds a little bit better. You can see she works okay with this background. The background is not quite so noticeable unless you're looking for it. So I want to talk about fussy tearing, I guess is what I call it, just a little bit. Let's find an image to kind of to use. Not that one. Let's use this one, something that's not quite so, well, let's use the chair. Let's use the chair. Let's use one that's a little bit fussy. I want to use this in an image, but I don't want it to look like a piece of magazine stuck on my background. So what I do is I use my thumb and my finger to go over the image where I don't want it to be torn, and that kind of guides the tear where I want the tear to go. Now I'm going to leave a bit of the background around here, and I'm going to move my thumb and my finger along the edge that I want to tear. So move it around. I want to tear all the way around. I don't want to tear too much around the legs. So I just use my thumb and finger to make sure that I'm not ripping into the image. If I hold what I want to save between my finger and thumb, the chances are I won't be ripping into that image. So now I've got this image that's fussy cut, fussy torn. Maybe I need to rip just a little bit more around here. And if you've noticed, it depends on which way you rip your paper. You'll get a white edge if you rip it towards yourself. And if you rip it away from yourself, you get the edge on the other side. So keep in mind, you want to test out a little corner, make sure you're ripping in the direction you want to rip in. Sometimes people like the little white edge. Sometimes it helps blend into your background a little bit better. And sometimes you don't want the white edge. So I'm just going to leave it for this purpose. And when I put it on my background, you don't see any straight edges. I mean, I can tilt it that way. I can, put it anywhere on this background, and it looks pretty good. The tearing really blends the background into the collage. It can, the tearing of the image blends it into the background just a little bit. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying there. So just a little bit of tearing, covering up edges, take away the straight edges, will really help in your fussy cutting, fussy tearing. It'll help your collages blend the images into your backgrounds so that you'll like your collages a little bit better. Let's go back to this little image that I did some fussy cutting. This is a really detailed fussy cut. I went all the way around, tried to make sure that there wasn't any background on her at all, until I got to things like fingers. And you can tell I've left a little bit of that background around her fingers and around her heels. There is even a little bit of background right around her leg there. But it's really not noticeable when you're looking at the collage as a whole. You really don't notice that kind of thing. You would notice if she was missing her finger more than you would notice a little bit of background left. So these are some options for fussy cutting. You don't have to fussy cut everything in great, great detail. You can kind of do some alternatives, leave a little bit of background, and you'll turn out just fine. So I hope that was helpful for those people that are really against the fussy cutting. Here are some options to get around it. Thanks for watching.